Todd Holmes is a historian who has coordinated the Agrarian Studies program right here at Yale before taking up a postdoc position at Stanford at the Bill Lane Center for the American West. He's finishing a book titled The Fruits of Fracture: The Corporate West, the United Farm Workers Movement, and the Rise of Reaganism in American Politics.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'm really honored actually to be on the concluding panel. As a father of three, to actually have the concluding words of anything, anywhere near is a very rare experience. So thank you for having me. And really actually thank you all for your amazing papers, amazing discussion. If you spend your days studying the rise of agribusiness and Ronald Reagan, is not the most, uplifting subjects. And it's like, I was reading many of the papers here. Well, that was still not the most uplifting subject, but at least it gives you better hope, right? I came to study agribusiness not just as an academic, but also I was the first of my family to go to college. And this is a family that's composed of generations of farmers. Farmers that, that lost their farms during the Dust Bowl, that were consolidated by agribusiness, or still scrape by a living by having to be part of this other corporate structure called cooperatives. We look at cooperatives in a nice way. Go to California. It's a much different kind of structure. But 5 minutes goes fast, and so I really wanted to focus on where we go, how we're going to go forward in regards to the issue of food sovereignty, that if we agree with the terms or not, or the terminologies that are falling under this umbrella, we're all sympathetic to the alternative of the corporate food system that we see. I just wanted to start actually with a quick story about Cesar Chavez, who was the founder of the United Farm Workers Union. And he was once asked, why are you unionizing farm workers? You're playing right into the system. And his response was, not that he didn't keep an eye on the larger war at hand and knowing the larger system of what he was operating in. But it was important to pick a fight, he would say, that you at least have a chance of perhaps winning. This system he was referencing in regards to agribusiness is not going anywhere. Now, this is an interesting aspect that Chavez, not only in regards to coalition building of what he shows in regards to the politics of possible. The UFW movement was the most successful agrarian movement in American history that went international and really has not, no other movement has really come close to achieving what they were able to do. But it was also the politics of the practical. And that's kind of within that vein of practical is where I think that we should also begin to focus on, in both intellectually and politically. Here, in regards to terms, that we all want alternatives to this system, and we're just really kind of grappling with how do we get there. Here, I just wanted to offer a few suggestions for us perhaps to discuss or go away with that may get us, well, obviously not there, but may advance us in at least a practical kind of avenue. I think the roles of the state have come up constantly. We see the state as evil on one hand, but the state is practical on the other. And I think we really need to deconstruct in the various roles of the state that we need, that we see, both not only in the United States, but also globally. I heard just fabulous discussions and papers, discussing the roles of the state on the national, on the local levels in Latin America, Asia, and Africa. And then we get to the global north, and the state, it's indifferent, right? I mean, particularly if you look at the United States, neoliberalism is a curse today. But one of the most profound readings of how farming no longer was farming because of agribusiness did not come from someone like Michael Pollan, but actually was written by a public intellectual by the name of Kerry McWilliams in 1939 in his book, Factories in the Field. That kind of historicizing what we're dealing with also kinds of reshapes the state that we're dealing with. The state he was critiquing mostly in his work had nothing to do with neoliberalism at that time. It had to do with the subsidies, the land, the water, the labor systems. That we still have, even with the rise of neoliberalism, we're still dealing with that today. I mean, one of the questions I had after, over this weekend is food sovereignty or any other kind of alternative really feasible if we still are paying out over $15 billion a year to subsidize corporate agribusiness, all by governments who want to embrace fiscal restraint. You know, which is, of course, I've been rallying, you know, for the past few years of, you know, why don't we cut subsidies? You know, turn neoliberalism on its head, at least in the global north. But that also gets us to the point which, you know, Americans also don't ever want to deal with, which is what I call the agrarian imaginary, that we still have farmers that are linked to those subsidies. My question is, are they? But my question is that agrarian imaginary not applicable here in the global north, such as America, but also our vision of agriculture and the alternatives also in the global south? I think, lastly, just to conclude, that I would also like to think, I think linking the global north and south in this larger system is extremely important. When we want to clarify our terms, that is one thing. But I think it's also important to at least, you know, when we look at what can be done, what kind of activism. Consumer politics, I know it's playing within the market, and that's kind of playing into neoliberal policies, but name one other kind of action outside of boycotts that gets the attention of corporate CEOs. And at the same time, once you have their attention, as Jim was bringing up, you may also have a politician's attention at the same time. But I also think we also need to move the consciousness beyond I see the end sign. But I also think we need to move the consciousness, at least here in the United States, beyond that. Our food system is not just about obesity, which becomes at the very focal point, right? You know, you read Michael Pollan's work, or you think that corn in our grain trade is just, you know, it's making everybody fat. And I think we need to try to also link that, at least within our consumers, to looking at how in this broader system that also it hinders and damages the food security and food sovereignty of the rest of the global south. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for a great conference.